Hello there, this is Dan, and you're about to listen to an extract from an episode of the Lee Cushing podcast. Unfortunately, our homepage at noisybark.com is no longer online, but we hope to have a new homepage set up soon. Watch for updates on Facebook and Twitter under @LeeCushingPod. In the meantime, stick with our home on YouTube, Ambidextrous Solutions Limited, to hear more extracts like this one. The presenters are Howard and myself, and the music is by Greg Hume.
Oh, great. Island of Terror.
Oh, you're joking?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that was one that I only recently added to the bag.
Oh, excellent.
Because I recently watched it.
Yeah, and I recently watched it on the Horror Channel. Thanks, Horror Channel.
Yes, me too. Horror Channel tend to show it in the middle of the day, which means that they can't show some of the more gruesome bits. But,
No.
So, Island of Terror. I know that we've mentioned this on the podcast. I think in the very first episode, you talked a little bit about it.
Yeah.
But now we've both seen it. Let's fill in the background a bit. I think it's 1966.
It's 1966. It's made by a production company called Planet Films, isn't it? It's
Planet
not Hammer
Film-
Films, not Amicus.
Planet Film Productions. Planet was a little rival studio that tried to do horror sci-fi movies, and like Amicus, tried to use their stars and their talent. So this film has Peter Cushing in it, and it's also directed by Terence Fisher. And it's an original screenplay, but it's kind of, although it's in colour, it's similar in tone and I guess to the Quatermass films.
Yes.
It's like a sci-fi horror B movie, and it's about. I came up with my alternative title for this film is Dave and Brian versus the Cancer Creatures, because the two scientists are called Dave and Brian. I can't remember what their surnames are.
No.
One of them's played by Peter Cushing. The other one's played by Edward Judd. And there's an island where an experiment to find a cure for cancer has gone terribly wrong and resulted in strange creatures roaming this island and victimising the population. And Dave and Brian get called in to go to the island and try and solve the problem, but get stuck there. And it then becomes a very claustrophobic fight for survival. I really enjoyed it.
I love it. Yeah, it's again one of those films where scientists, with the best of intentions, do something terrible. But the way it's built up is it's all set in this island. In Ireland, I think it is, isn't it? It's an Irish
It is,
island.
yeah.
And a lot of the actors in the supporting cast are Irish. People like Eddie Byrne and Niall McGuinness is in it, who was great as Carswell in Night of the Demon.
Yeah.
He plays a part in this.
And Sam Kidd's in it, since
Sam
we
Kidd,
mentioned
who is
him
Irish.
earlier.
Yeah. But a lot of the actors in supporting parts, I don't know, because they're sort of Irish actors who worked in Ireland, presumably. But yeah,
Who's the female lead?
it's Carol Gray.
Yeah. And
Who's one of those sort of like actresses who did a lot of things in the 60s, well, a few things in the 60s, and was in these sort of films, and then has sort of vanished without trace. You know, there are people like Janet Monroe, was another one, and Yvonne Monlure, who was in a couple of early Hammer films.
But yeah, so Carol Gray is very good, and she plays this. She's Edward Judd's girlfriend.
She's the love interest, yeah. She's his
but
girlfriend.
she's also like the daughter of a rich industrialist or something. So when they say we've got to get over to this island, there's an emergency, she goes, "Well, my dad has a big helicopter, and I'm sure I could get him to lend it to us." And she kind of takes charge in that moment. And that's quite interesting. Unfortunately, she doesn't really get much to do for the rest of the film, apart from scream at stuff.
And look pretty. It's
But
interesting.
she's good.
One of the interesting things about it is it's suggested that there's a little bit of jealousy on the part of Peter Cushing's character when he sees these two together.
Yeah.
And he says something about, I'll have to play solitaire or something like that.
Oh, yeah. No, there's interesting interplay.
And that's an interesting little thing which I don't usually do.
Peter Cushing is Brian, by the way. Edward Judd is Dave.
Impeccable as always, brilliant as always. Plays Dr. Brian Stanley, I think his name is, who's an expert on something. and Edward Judd is an expert on something else.
We pay attention to these details.
But I don't think it matters in this case. They're experts. They're scientists.
No, it doesn't matter in these films.
But I
Maybe
just
it
like
should,
that. I
but it
like that
doesn't.
element because it's almost like Peter Cushing's in his early 50s. Then it's almost like he's not going to get the girl because he's a little bit old. It's the younger people who have the romantic interest, and the older, more middle-aged characters sort of left out. And I think that's an interesting little element to the film, which is not. It's not. They don't make a big thing of it, but it's there, and it's there in Peter Cushing's performance. A slight hint of something.
Yeah.
It's not really developed all that much all the way through it, but it's there, and I think it's those little things that give the films a little, sort of extra bit of bite,
Yeah, I agree, and I think that because of moments like that, the performance is very strong throughout. Cushing's great, obviously. So is Judd. So is everybody. But they're an interesting pair of leads.
Yeah.
And because of that slight generational difference, that dynamic between them. But they obviously have a great deal of affection for each other as well. There's a bit where, I don't want to spoil it too much, but there's a bit where Dave, and he's called Dr. David whatever, but there are moments where Peter Cushing calls him Dave, so he's always Dave to me. Dave has to do something horrible to Brian to save Brian's life, and he's like, no, I can't do it, and you can see that he obviously cares for him, but Cushing insists and gets something horrible done to him, which he takes like a man, and with a great deal of style.
When I first saw this film, again, it's one of the ones I saw as a teenager, I was quite struck by that scene, how graphic it was.
Yeah.
To actually see the thing that happens. I thought, wow, for a mid-60s film, that's quite strong stuff.
Yeah,
and when you see the bodies that have been denuded of bone marrow, isn't it, or something?
That's a lovely use of the word denuded there, Howard.
They're all sort of like all mushy, and they're all sort of like deflated.
Yeah, well, Sam Kidd has a great line where he says something like, "There was no face, just some horrible mush with the eyes sitting in it."
Yeah,
and it's not quite as horrible. Well, it is. It's not quite as horrible as that description, but it is quite striking what you see. There are moments where there's a dissection scene, isn't there, or a post-mortem on one of the victims, and it just cuts, and you're suddenly looking at this kind of shrunken skull on a slab, just without any kind of forewarning, and it's quite alarming. I think mostly the film is just it's a decent yarn, as you said in one of the previous podcasts. The monsters are good.
The monsters
good
are
monsters. And there's a couple of particularly nice, you don't see them, obviously, the first half of the film or so. And there's nice, gentle reveals, gradual reveals of what they are. Like, you see Carol Gray's in a car, and one of them is on the roof, and you see something sliding over
That's a brilliant moment. I saw that again. I was flicking through channels on telly, and Alan Taylor was on, and that scene was on, and it still worked. She's sitting in the car, and suddenly the thing goes down the windscreen. And it's like, what? Whoa! And they're in the field. Cushing and Edward Judd are in the field and come running across. Yeah, it's so brilliant. Terence Fisher was a master of the art of scaring people, and creating those sort of little moments. And it's interesting. Yeah, because it's like interesting that Terence Fisher directs this, because most, not all, but nearly most of the films he made for Hammer were period pieces.
Yeah,
they were Dracula films, Frankenstein films. They were set in the past. This is set in the present day. And it's set in like an ordinary, it's on this island, ordinary streets, ordinary place, it's cars and things. So you might think he's a bit out of his comfort zone, but it's really good. He directs it. He knows.
I think the island setting, and by the way, I think one of the less convincing things about the film is that it doesn't quite make you believe it is really an island. I think there's a couple of shots in the docks and things, but most of the locations are firmly landlocked looking. But I think that, it's this kind of this claustrophobic environment of this small island with this kind of farming community on it. There's something quite primal about that he keys into, I think. In other movies like probably Night of the Big Heat, which we'll talk about on another episode, he's not so comfortable with the modern tone of it.
No.
But he does do quite well in this, and he does quite well in, I think, The Earth Dies Screaming. But maybe that's because that movie is about everybody's fallen asleep, isn't it? So it's quite an eerie world.
All I know is that Dennis Price gets turned into a zombie.
Have you not seen it?
Has funny eyes. I think I've seen it a long time ago.
I like it. I like it a lot. I recommend that. And Lizzie Luchins on the music. I really enjoyed Island of Terror, apart from the music by Malcolm Lockyer.
Do you not like the music?
Not really. It's kind of... Yeah. That won't get out of your head for weeks after seeing this film. He writes kind of very beautiful but raucous, sort of dramatic music.
It's very kind of insistent. Yeah, it does get in your head, doesn't it?
It could do with more, more seductive, eerie stuff, Not James Bernard, something else, I can't. But it's like it's music that you can almost enjoy, but you wish it wasn't on the film. It's a bit mismatched. But apart from that, I think it's pretty good, and it does seem to be on Horror Channel quite regularly. So
I love it. I mean, this is exactly the kind of film I really love. Again, to me, it's got the same kind of atmosphere in a way as Dr. Terror's House of Horrors.
Okay,
it's supposed to be a horror film, but I just find it really charming and quaint.
Right.
And there's a kind of old-fashioned feel to it, which is lost now. You're not going to get films like this. It's kind of you sort of know the main people are going to be all right.
Yeah.
And everybody's very reassuring.
Well, it's got that kind of blunt, lunk-headed way that kind of plot information is given away, like the opening scene in the laboratory, where the scientists say to each other things for our benefit,
yes.
like, well, we have something here that we can't test around the world, but we'll test it now and then inform the rest of the world. And by the morning, we may have the cure for cancer.
Yeah, it is that. I mean, it's clunky where people tell each other things they already know. But I think in this sort of film, that's accepted. That's okay,
I think that
because you need to get that information over.
Well, I do think that was kind of quite charming. I'm glad those characters didn't go on to be main characters in the film. They're killed immediately.
Yes, they are. It is. It's a romp. It's a yarn. It's just a piece of entertainment. That demands nothing more of the audience, so you just sit back and enjoy it and get caught up in it. And the monsters are great, and various people are killed off, and there's lots of action, and what more do you want?
No, I enjoyed it.
And Peter Cushing's in it.
Yeah, and he's great.
Yeah.
No, fair enough.
Always is.
I think you've sold that one, Howard. Nice work.
I think it's brilliant. I do. I really do.
Okay.
That's a favourite.
God bless.
That's what I like. I don't know what kind of thing I like. That's what I like.
I'm trying to remember who the DP is, the director of photography. Might be John Wilcox. Not sure. It looks nice anyway. It's not nice, kind of wholesome 60s
It's got
colour.
that 60s sheen. Again, like Dr. Terror and some of the mid-60s Hammer films. It's got that sort of glow that those films had.
Well, there we go, folks. So if you weren't encouraged enough by Howard's enthusiasm in episode 1, go back to it now. Island of Terror. I didn't regret it, and neither will you.
No.